everybody's younger than me. I'm 68 right now. But there was an expression that I always had when I was a kid, and that was Dr. Livingston, I presume. Well, a lot of people don't know where that came from, but Dr. Stanley Livingston was a missionary in Africa, and he was there for 32 years. And he's another one that felt like he was a failure. When he was there, he only had one person in 32 years that he ever converted and brought to Christianity. And that person's name was Chief Sekele of the Bakwina tribe. And what happened was this chief, he kind of got into wanting to understand Christianity, perhaps for some of the wrong reasons. This chief and his uncle were the two head people of all the tribes there. And so he knew that the culture could bring some Western technology. So he welcomed the missionaries, not just technology, but medicine and guns and things like that. And so his uncle, though, was very, very cautious about this. And so Dr. Livingston, the missionary, he told the chief, you need to make peace with your uncle. So the chief did. He sent a big keg of gunpowder to his uncle, but his uncle thought that the gunpowder was cursed, and he wanted to get rid of the curse by setting it on fire, and it blew up and it killed his uncle, and then the chief was able to take over the entire tribe. Well, what's interesting here is that this chief had 5 wives when Dr. Livingston first met him. And so the chief was very reluctant to accept Christianity if he had to get rid of 4 of his wives. He could only have 1 wife. And they also had this tribal custom where they did this rain dance, bringing on the rain to get rid of the drought. And Dr. Livingston told him that that's not going to keep with Christianity either. So reluctantly, the chief got rid of that. So the point is this. By the way, this was in the Congo also, the same area as the other gentleman that I just spoke with. And so anyway, the chief, he got rid of 4 of his wives. And but what happened was less than a year later, one of the wives that he divorced, she got pregnant with his baby. So it kind of came out that the chief had kind of backslid a little bit there. And so, Dr. Livingston forgave him and kept him moving forward. But the bottom line is that the chief is the only one that was converted to Christianity during Dr. Livingston's life. But the interesting thing about Dr. Livingston is he disappeared. He went so far into the jungle that for 6 years, no one knew where he was. And when another person later found him, that's the famous line, a Mr. Stanley, Dr. Livingston and Mr. Stanley. The first thing that Mr. Stanley said to him when he stumbled into this village that was very hidden from the rest of the world, when he saw this man that was in there with the rest of the natives there, he said, Dr. Livingston, I presume. So for those of you that remember that phrase, that's kind of the history behind it. But what happened was Dr. Livingston was there for 32 years, and he never thought that he had but that one convert. Well, the good news here is that the one convert, the chief that I've told you about, he ended up becoming an incredible missionary himself, and he convinced thousands of Africans to adopt the faith and become Christians. And so think about that. Dr. Livingston did not see the fruits of his labor in his own lifetime, but thousands and thousands of people, because of the one person that he converted, became a great missionary himself and passed on Christianity to thousands of people. And it got rooted there in that part of Africa. And so I guess what I want to say about that is I sure hope that the work that a lot of us do, that we don't feel like we're getting any results, actually does have results that we just don't even know are going to happen. And I'm committed to that because, like I said, I know that the work of Right Thinking Foundation is good. I know that it's necessary, and I'm going to keep doing it. I hope that the message of those missionary stories means something to you. Again, keep working hard at what's right. And even though you don't see results, if you know it's right, just keep doing it. And again, get your guidance from the word of the Lord. Well, last year on Right Thinking with Steve Copeland, it was a wonderful year for broadcasts that I was able to do. Before I go any further, I'd like to thank Chuck Christie, the producer, who believes in right thinking, who believes in me. And I just want to say, Chuck, thank you for supporting right thinking. Thank you for producing the show. But above all else, thanks for the person that you are. And I know that you are trying to seek your direction from the Lord, and that you want to continue to pass on as much of what the Lord's kingdom is all about to those that need to be welcomed into it. And again, you're doing great things with your life, and I just thank you for being part of Right Thinking and being my producer. Well, last year I had 52 shows, one each week, and I did repeat 14 of the previous shows, because a lot of people listen to the shows, they're never going to go back and listen to all of them from the beginning. But what I try to do is I'll try to recycle a couple of shows that I think the message is really good. And again, a lot of my messages are kind of motivational and encouraging, but a lot of them are actual tools. And the year before, the last 4 episodes I did before that Christmas show that I did, that I read the clip with Donna, or that we listened to that clip. You know, my program that I've been doing in prisons for going on 8 years, next February, it's called Personal Finance and Small Business Ownership. Right Thinking tries to help reduce stress in people's lives that are caused by their finances. Just to give you a little definition of what it is, it's a financial literacy program, but it's really not about money. Maybe only 25% about money. I can teach anybody how to budget and pay attention to their money, but if they don't know their purpose, they're gonna spend it on the wrong things. And so I try to help people learn how to get their lives in order, and I do it through connecting them with their money so that they can learn to stabilize their finances and be able to reach goals and pay more attention to what a good life is. And I'm going to come back to that near the end of the show. But I had some great shows last year. I don't know if I finished saying it just now, but the last 4 shows of 2018, not 19, were Personal Finance, Small Business Ownership, Part 1, 2, 3, and 4, which is kind of a summary of what I go in and try to pass on to people in prisons on how to handle their finances and perhaps start their own business. Well, last year I had 4 different returning citizens who were guests on my show, and you've become familiar with Dwayne Maloff. He is just so beautiful, and I did a show with him near the end of May last year called Never Take Your Freedom for Granted. Now, Dwayne, after spending 27 years in prison in upstate New York before he was eligible for parole, I got introduced to Dwayne about 2 years ago by Jim Stovall, and he had asked Jim Stovall to be his mentor, and Jim Stovall called me up and said, "Hey, Steve, I don't really know too much about that. I got to thinking, who do I know that knows the most? And it's you. So would you at least entertain the thought of maybe mentoring Dwayne?" So I started my relationship with Dwayne. I mentored him for a year before he got out. And he's got a very famous line. He wrote me a first letter saying that he was going to be eligible for parole for the first time in 6 weeks, 2 months, or whatever it was. And he said, but he wanted me to know that his chances of making parole in New York, a state that's hard on crime, to make parole the first time that he goes up for it is about as slim as a Matchbox car winning the Grand Prix. Well, I'm thrilled to say that Dwayne made parole on his first time, but he didn't just stop there. He got out, and in the first year that he's been out of prison, this man has done absolutely remarkable things with his life, and now he's moving on to he's got a significant relationship with a wonderful woman in Pennsylvania. And he's moved to Pennsylvania, and he's getting ready to start his own business and landscaping, snow removal kind of thing. And I just got to tell you that he's a superstar. He's an incredibly wonderful person. And I am proud to say that, Dwayne, I love you, and I'm glad to be your friend. Congratulations on the life that you've carved out for yourself, and you're an inspiration to everyone. Now, another person that I have that is a close friend that's a returning citizen is Robert Miller. And Robert Miller, I met in Oregon at Powder River Correctional Facility probably a couple years ago. And I've read his letters multiple times on the show. One of the last shows I did a year ago was Hope Through Education. He taught me something, and that was that people that are incarcerated have a 94% less chance of recidivating if they get a college education while they're in prison through like a correspondence course. He actually sent me some statistics here recently. Recidivism rates for the incarcerated. And this is from a source called Robert Allen, an economic analysis of prison education programs and recidivism, Emory University Department of Economics, 2006 article. So it's kind of outdated, but the point's still good. People that are in prison that have a high school or GED diploma, high school degree or GED diploma, they have a 53% likelihood that they're going to return to prison. People that go into vocational training, a higher level there, they only have a 30% likelihood that they're going to return to prison when they get out and go back. People that have an associate's degree have a 13.7% likelihood that they're going to return to prison. 86.2% don't go back. The national average is 70% go back. This is exactly the opposite. People that have a bachelor's degree have a 5.6% return to prison rate. That means that they are basically 94.4% not going to recidivate. And people that have a master's degree, it's almost no one ever goes back that's reached that high level of education. So when Robert let me know this information, he also asked, could I help him find a way to get a scholarship? And y'all know the story. It's been on the air. My dad died a year ago, August, 95 years old, World War II veteran, and I had a $2,000 life insurance policy from the VA, and I gave that to Robert for his first semester. But then Robert introduced me through a letter. He connected me with a man named Mark Cranick, who is in Wilmington, North Carolina, and he's a Bible study teacher that Robert was doing correspondence Bible study with. Well, Robert connected the two of us. Now look at this. Now, Robert's in prison in Oregon, and he connects me in Norfolk, Virginia, to Mark Cranick in Wilmington, North Carolina. And Mark and I create a relationship. And in the very first 5 minutes that I'm talking to Mark about Robert, and I'm getting ready to do another semester for Robert, he says, put me down for $500. Well, Mark, you're a beautiful guy, and you understand, and we need more people like you to help people like Robert continue their education. But I've gotten to be good friends with Mark. And now what I want to tell you is that Robert is going to be getting out of prison in about 4 or 5 months, give or take, May, I think. He went from one prison, he got transferred to another. And when I went out to Oregon last November, a couple months ago, I went to the prison where Robert was. And unfortunately, the other prison that he got transferred to was too far off the path, and I wasn't able to visit him. But I did talk to him a couple weeks ago, and it was an unfortunate conversation. This is part of the appeal that I'm trying to share with everyone. I want Robert to continue in his education, and I've got people that are trying to help me raise some more money for Adams State Correspondence School, University, Distance Learning College. But I can't get anybody to contribute. You know, everybody likes what I do. Everybody pats me on the back, but I've asked over and over again on previous shows. But so I wanted to get more money for Robert, but I was unable to on my own. I had a lot of issues myself this year that I'm not going to go into on this show. But Robert did call me. One of the counselors that he's with in this new facility got him on the phone with me. And here's a letter that I want to read from Robert. December the 18th. Hi, Steve. It was really great being able to speak with you on the phone again. I have really missed our conversations. Once again, I want to express my thanks and gratitude for all you have done in his name for me. And Steve, of the funding for more classes, if the